All right. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It was about a year ago today that I got released from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we launched this podcast with the intention of exploring how different people have made it through life's unexpected events. I have lost my job, been released from 9 different NFL teams, and it hasn't been easy for me, and I've grown and matured through the process. And in this episode, I wanted to bring you guys an interview where I sit down with the guy that I was competing with in the Redskins training camp. And so if you guys don't know my story, I was picked up by the Washington Redskins to play the last 3 games of the 2018 season. It had been my goal, and I'd worked for it for 4 years, and finally this dream came true. So I've been with the Redskins ever since. And it was because Nick Sundberg, who had been the 10-year vet, was injured. So now he's back and healthy, and him and I are competing for this one roster spot. And I wanted to bring this interview to you guys so that you could understand the dynamics of what it's like to spend 8 hours a day with the person that might take your job or you might take their job. And I think that this interview accomplished that. You'll kind of catch those dynamics and see the ins and outs of what it's like to be competing for an NFL roster spot and what it takes to make that happen. So I was hounding Nick to make this happen because you never know when you could get cut from an NFL team. It could be at breakfast. It could be 10 years from now. It could be whenever, literally whenever. And so I was like, Nick, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. And so we finally did it. And we finished the interview at about 4 p.m. on a Thursday. And he had missed calls from the punter and the special teams coach. And I saw him. He picked up his phone right after we were done with the interview. And I saw him look at these missed calls, and his face goes flush. And there's this feeling that, man, maybe he got released. But it was an hour and a half after that I got a call from the scouting department notifying me of my release and ended my time at the Redskins. I really enjoyed my time in Washington. Couldn't be more thankful. I accomplished my dream of playing in the NFL, and I got an accredited season, and I made some wonderful friends. And ultimately, I feel like I grew to be a better man. So thank you, Washington. Thank you to all the fans who showed up and supported me. Had so much fun getting to know you guys, and couldn't be more thankful. But now it's on to the next chapter. And in relation to this podcast, it's what's next for me? How do I deal with this unexpected event? And so there's more episodes to come to help us tackle that. But I'm excited to be with Shawn as she goes through this pregnancy journey, and we'll go through it together. But here's the interview with Nick Sundberg, the man that I was fighting with and against to earn the one roster spot on an NFL roster for a long snapper. So enjoy this one with Nick Sundberg. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button, give the show a rating. Would love to have you stick around and would love to hear what you guys think of this. It is our goal to help and encourage others to make it through whatever unexpected events that they might be going through. Would love to have you stick around. So here we go. Let me just start off with this question. On a scale of like Tanya Harding physical injury to like psychological warfare, like what's your strategy going into this competition, you versus me camp?
So I was really lucky when I was my first year in Washington. Okay. So I don't know if you know this story, but the team didn't re-sign the snapper that was here before me. He was like 40 or 41 years old, Ethan Albright. He played forever, right? So he needed, I think, a back surgery, a hip surgery, and a wrist surgery or something after that 2009 season. So they just decided not to re-sign him. So when I got the call from Washington, they said, hey, we want to sign you, and only you. You're going to be the guy. It's your job to lose. And now I was coming off a season. I'd only played in the UFL. I was on Baltimore's practice squad. I was a nobody, really, at the time. But I was like, sounds like a pretty sweet opportunity, right? Just don't screw it up. Yeah. I came in and had the worst 3 months snapping I've ever had in my entire life. It was unbelievable, yeah. Our punter, they had signed a new punter. They just had a baby in Oregon. He decided not to show up to OTAs at all. No way. So we had 2 kickers at the time, Graham Gano and Justin Medlock, a righty and a lefty. And they were holding for each other during team field goal periods. What? It was a nightmare. I was trying to baby the ball back there and be perfect for them, and it just destroyed me mentally. Yeah. snapped terribly. Thought I was getting cut every day, and I had Danny Smith at the time, the special teams coach, who was a complete nutball.
Yeah.
But so fast forward a little bit, we get into training camp, and I've kind of turned things around. Punter's there, feeling a little better about myself. Play our first preseason game against Buffalo, and I don't know if you guys know this, but the first preseason game in special teams is kind of a cakewalk for a punt team, right? You don't get any exotic looks. You might get 1 7-box look. It's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had a pretty good game. Day after the game, they signed an 11-year vet. So I was like, well, maybe I didn't have that good a game, right? So I'm reevaluating my life.
My entire life.
My entire life. So James Dirth was the gentleman's name. Played with the Jets for 11 years, I believe.
Jeez.
Awesome guy. Just a great dude. Came in, shook my hand the first time we met, and just said, hey, man, I watched the game. Like, you played great. I don't even know why I'm here. I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I understand, they might want some competition or something, but he's like, this is your job to lose. He's like, if you ever have any questions, you want to talk about protection, footwork, you want to talk about reading coverages, that sort of stuff, like, I'm an open book. I was like, yep. He's like, what? Right now, let's go. I was like, let's go. Come talk to me about all sorts of stuff. And he was amazing. He was the most just giving and kind of selfless person that I'd really ever met in the business up until that point. And because of the way that he treated me when I was so young, I decided that like I was never going to treat somebody that I'm competing with in a terrible way, right? So like I want to help as much as I can, and I understand that this is a business and it is a competition, but at the end of the day, like I want to get good tape on film, and I want you to get good tape on film because we both can play in the NFL. We've both proven that, right? So if you win this job, I want to have good tape so I can go get a job somewhere else. If I win this job, I want you to have good tape so you can go get a job somewhere else. So if there's stuff that you want to fine-tune, like, I mean, we've been working together for the past 5 months now through OTAs and that stuff, and I feel like I don't want to step on your toes, but when I see something like, hey, I think this might help you out a little bit, I'm going to say it, right? Do you feel like I've been open that way with you?
I was about to say, to your credit, I feel like you've done a phenomenal job at being generous and selfless and coaching me up where you see I have faults. And so
it's not necessarily faults. So I don't want right.
I mean, well, you have however many more years of experience that I don't have, and you have shared that with me selflessly, and it's appreciated. You've had guys come try out, and you've tried out against other guys, and you know that there's been awkward interactions of like a guy who, like wouldn't have a conversation with you or was like kind of disrespectful in some senses.
Right. And the way I looked at this was I never wanted say I win this job, right? I don't want you to leave here and be like, man, Nick was the biggest asshole to me.
Yeah.
And he's such a jerk and all this. Like, we could have had a great relationship because of the way that he treated me, man, I'll never talk to that guy again, right? Like, I want you to invite me on your podcast. Hey. Right?
I appreciate you being on. And I wanted to do this episode. I know it's kind of weird. I don't know if we told all our teammates like what they would think about it, because there's kind of this old school football mentality of like you versus me, and at the end of the day, only one of us is going to have the job, and I want to talk about that. But I don't want to speak out of line. I would consider us friends.
Yeah, man.
Which I agree with that. I was trying to do the math. I think it's like 4 to 6 hours together for the past. For sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time.
I mean, you've been to my house. You've eaten tacos in my kitchen.
Yeah.
You pet my dog.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have invited you over if I didn't think you were a friend, right?
It's just I appreciate that. If we could back up though, for the people listening who maybe don't know what a long snapper is, I'm curious. Since you've been doing this is now your 10th season.
10th in Washington, 11 out of college. Yeah.
Wow. How do you describe what your position is to people who don't know football that well?
The most simple way to do it, because everybody knows what a punter is.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what a punter is? They said, yeah. Well, you know how he catches the ball? Mm-hmm. Well, who throws it to him? Oh.
You're that guy.
That guy. Right? Simple as that.
So we get, to expand a little more, anywhere from, is it fair to say like 7 to 12 plays a game? 8 to 12?
Yeah, I think over my career I've averaged around, I I want to say 8. 8's a really good number. And you hope they're all PATs and field goals. But generally it works out to around 8 a game, yeah.
Yeah. And that being the case, there's not a high risk of fatigue or of injury. It's a very specialty position, and that's part of the reason why there is only one on the roster.
Correct. And that's why my mom's okay with me doing it.
Yeah. That's a big perk for sure.
Absolutely.
But if you could describe, because you have way more experience than I do, the situation that we're in now, where we're about to be in our second week of camp and no cuts have been made. So we have a 90-man roster. They're ultimately going to whittle that down. What's the process like, and what's going on between our competition now for those people who might not know the ins and outs of the NFL?
I mean, the process right now is just getting ready to play Cleveland, in my mind.
Interesting.
Right? So,
Interesting.
This is only the second time in my career I've ever had competition.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. My first year or I guess technically my second year and my 11th. So, I look at it as I'm trying to do everything I can to be as ready as possible for week 1 of the preseason, and I'm trying to do everything I can to help you be as ready as possible for week 1 of the preseason. I have no idea because how we're going to split reps or do any of that stuff yet, but we'll figure that out along the way. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's our job to help Tress, our punter, and Dustin, our kicker, be their best selves. And so regardless of who's in the game, I want them to perform at their best ability, right? Yeah. So right now I'm doing my best to be my best so I can help them be their best. And I want to do my best to help you be your best so you can help them be their best, right?
Yeah, no, that's really good insight into your mentality, and I just learned something because it's hard for me it's easy for me to look past Cleveland and think about I told you I wanted to do this interview ASAP because, I don't know when I could get cut, when I couldn't. And that, given my experience, and I want to jump into yours, but I've been cut. This is now my 7th different professional team over 5 years, 9 different contracts. I think I've conditioned myself, this is a bad thing, to expect
the worst.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Which is not a good mentality, and I don't take pride in that. I'm just saying, yes, 100%, I know that my job is to take care of Tress and to take care of Dustin, and if I don't do that, there's I don't know if you feel this, a guilt of
oh, absolutely.
That's my whole job.
I hate putting them in terrible situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Tress is so good and so
forgiving
and easy, and he's really good at making you feel better because so Tress and I have played together for 5 years, and every once in a while I'll throw a snap back that I'm very unhappy with, and he'll be like, "Hey man, I get paid too," and you're like, "You know what? You sure do."
Yeah.
It's you don't have to be perfect every time. I get it, but that's what I'm striving for, right? So, he's really really good at even at times where we don't put ourselves in the best situation to look the best, he makes up for it on the back end. So, but going back to what you're saying about kind of conditioning yourself for whatever mentality that is, the advice that I would give you is every specialist journey is their own journey, right? And I've met quite a few other guys who've got much longer journeys than you do. I think Billy Cundiff was on 11 or 12 teams before he ever played a game. Yes.
Oh my god.
Started his first game at 28 or something like that. Crazy. He's got a crazy story. Played on more than half the NFL team. Unbelievable. But it's hard. We play a very tough position. There are 32 jobs, right? So, and if you think about it, I've been here for 9 years. The guy in Miami's been going into year 16, I think.
Jeez.
Right? Giants is 15. Dallas is 15. You got some old guys who've had jobs for a long time. So it's not hey, there's 32 jobs, but 7 or 8 open a year. Maybe 1 or 2 open a year, right?
Yeah,
so It's all about what I've learned, especially in my journey, was everything is about timing, luck, and having a coach that's willing to take a chance on you. And at the end of the day, timing, when somebody's retiring or too hurt to play, or the team is the guy's too expensive and they want to make a move. Luck, that's how I got a scholarship to college. The kid who was supposed to snap towards ACL, right? So things happen sometimes, and you just happen to be in the right place at the right time. And then having a coach that's willing to take a chance on you. At the end of the day, I don't know if how versed your listeners are to the thought processes of NFL coaches, but especially with special teams coaches and specialists, the biggest thing that they think, the biggest question they ask themselves is, can I sleep well on Saturday night?
Yeah.
Knowing that you're the guy. And if the answer to that question is yes, you can have a job for a long time, right?
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't get so hung up on man, I've had this long journey. Shoot, I'd be proud of it, especially because you have a credited season under your belt at this point now, right?
Yeah.
So the journey is just beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I don't say that. My expectations of my NFL career have definitely shifted and adjusted just because I haven't made it it took me 5 years to finally get a accredited season. But if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be interested in what we're doing now and
Sure.
putting out this show or
everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah. You mentioned the workout circuit, and what happens is there's 53 guys that make the active roster on every team. So 53 times 32, that's what, let's just say 16
something, yeah.
1,600 players. And then there's probably a pool of 400 guys on a workout circuit, just estimate.
Well, each team also has 10 practice squad players.
Okay.
So you got 320 other practice squad players, right?
So just about 2,000 in the NFL signed to a team.
Correct.
And then there's
a lot of guys on the workout train
who are in this pool of players who may or may not be good enough or may not have the right timing to be signed to a team. And that's what I've been on the past 5 years. But they're also probably guys who were on the 90-man roster, which is what's going on now. So,
right.
So there's the 90-man roster that ultimately gets whittled down to 53. Is it after 4 preseason games now?
Yeah, there's only one cut now. It used to be during OTAs, they would do two sets of cuts during OTAs. It would go from, I think, 90 to 83, 83 to 75, and we'd come to training camp with 75. And then after the second preseason game, they'd cut to 66, I think, and then after the fourth, they'd cut to 53. And now they just do one cut at the end, 90 to 53, and then sign 10 practice squad guys.
Right at
the next day, yeah.
Yeah. There's a bunch of contractual nuances. Nick, you're the NFL PA rep for the team.
I am the PA rep for the Washington Redskins.
So you get some unique insight where this is something that you don't really understand until I feel like you're a player, really deep into the NFL. It's really the NFL, and I don't want to say versus, but it's a completely different entity.
It's versus.
You say versus?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't want to put that word in your mouth.
It's true.
NFL versus the NFLPA, which is all of the players combined. It's a union.
Yeah, it is a very interesting dynamic because we, as players, we want to work with the NFL. We want to be equal share partners. We all have the same interest in mind, right? We want to, as players, we want to make as much money as we can to support our families for the rest of our lives, that sort of thing. If we are able to be in that situation where we can make enough to, so our kids can be set, that sort of thing. The majority of players are not in that situation. So just a heads up, I think it's almost 70% of the NFL are on minimum contracts. So this thought process of all NFL players are millionaires, it's just far-fetched. It's just not true.
Not to say that we don't make a good living as a minimum.
I'm absolutely not saying that we don't make a good living. But if you ever get on social media after a football game and watch people tear down guys because they had a bad game for their fantasy team, I think it's time. Fans at some point have to realize, look, man, not all of us make $10 million a year and can just walk away from the game at any time. Like I make a wonderful living. We all do. But there's a very, very big difference from the top to the bottom. And there's a huge gap in the middle that doesn't exist. Like the middle class in the NFL has faded since in this last CBA because of the way that owners and GMs have decided to structure contracts for the 5 big guys, and everybody else is kind of just at the bottom.
There's 5 big guys?
Always.
Is that
yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know.
I mean, quarterback. Generally, it's quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher, you call it, like corner receiver. And you kind of can play with those last 2. But
so when people ask me, like, they're like, hey, man, so are you on the Redskins this season? Like, should I buy my tickets? Again, different mindset than you have. But, like, it's a kind of a convoluted answer because
I haven't told anybody to buy tickets.
No.
Like, here's it. For the last 9 years of my career, I tell them to wait till the week of.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because anything can happen at any moment, right? I've been hurt 3 times. 3 seasons in my career, I've been hurt at different times. So, I'm sorry, 4 seasons I've missed games. So, you never know, right?
I always try to tell people, like, there's really only, I think I usually say, like, 6 or 7 guys that are, like, shoo-ins.
Absolutely.
Of, like, these guys are going to be on the team. Everybody else is kind of this, like, hodgepodge of they might be on the Redskins this week or the Ravens next week or whatever. Yeah. Like, it's just like this mix of,
Yeah, there's a core of guys that you could definitively say, like, they're going to be here. And there's generally a couple reasons why. Sometimes it's talent, like they're above and beyond better than the guy that they're competing with. Most of the time it's contract. Like they make too much money to cut at this year, right? Like we've given them the team has given them too much guaranteed money to release them right now. So they're probably going to be here for at least this year, depending on the way the contract is structured, right? But yeah, there's definitely a pool of players that are for sure going to be here, and then there's the rest of the guys that are like, well, anything can happen any time. The first line of every NFL contract is you can be released at any time for any reason.
Yeah, so, if you don't meet the club's expectations,
right.
I think is something like the verbiage.
People ask me all the time, too. I mean, over the last 10 years, have asked all the time, like in June or in April when the schedule comes out, hey, can I come to the Dallas game? You can go. Whether or not I'm there is still up in the air, but yeah, you can absolutely go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is an interesting dynamic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the only sports that have guaranteed contracts are MLB. Well, money wise, MLB and basketball. Is that right?
Hockey too.
Hockey is guaranteed?
I think so. Yeah.
Man, I did not know that. So like my first year, I signed with the Chiefs. I don't know if you know the story. I was like, the coach was like, "You're our guy. We're going to bring in competition because you're a rookie, but, like, you're our guy." So I signed a 4-year deal and literally, like, had a mental dog. I just wasn't ready. It's like a different –
I wasn't ready my first year either, yeah.
Bro,
that's why I got cut in Carolina. I was absolutely not ready. First time in my entire life I was told I wasn't good enough, and it absolutely destroyed my psyche.
Dude, I was snapping with gloves on. I'd never done that. I was like –
why?
Don't ask me, man. I was a different person back then.
Just all swagged out. Andrew trying to be cool.
No, the coach the first day was like, "Hey, you might want to like try snapping with gloves on. It gets cold up here." And I was like, "Okay." And then I did it once in practice, and I was like, "Well, I can't not do it now because I'm like." Anyway, it was a bad spot. Yeah, it was a bad spot.
Specialists tend to get in our own heads.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing about I compare specialists to like golfers where it's like. Really, we barely play football. Like, we put on pads in the same jerseys as everybody else, but, like, it's kind of our own game within the game. Like,
especially kicker and punter.
Especially, like, we'll run down the field on punt, which is now we're part of the action. But, like, really, you have a static start if you're a snapper, just like golf, where it's like there's no inertia or, like, dynamic movement ahead of time. And then it's just you in control of your own destiny.
Right.
It's like, which is beautiful, but it can also mentally really shake you up a little bit.
Yeah. And that was something that I struggled with for my first 2 or 3 years here. Getting out of my own way was really difficult for me because I was trying so hard to be perfect that if anything was just the slightest bit off, it would wreck me. you know, and I would think about it for days after the game, like, oh, my footwork wasn't great on this play, and I was on this guy was on my edge, or on this field goal snap, it was a little bit 6 inches inside, or whatever it may be, and it would just eat at me. And it took my punter at the time, Sav Raka. He played Australian rules football for 15 years before he came over here.
No way.
Then played in the NFL for 7 years. But it took him just being like, hey man, forget about it. And I was like, what? He's like, who gives, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay. All right, I guess. And then I just started forgetting about it and was like, I got so much better because I was just like, whatever happens, happens. And we'll deal with it after, right? Like, good or bad, whatever happens, happens. You just you move forward. Yeah. And hope for the best.
So that's been, I think, how I've progressed in my time in the NFL is because I used to be out there like snapping hundreds of balls a day because I'm like, you have this mentality of the more practice, the better. But then like physically it
wears on you.
And so my mentality now is like just the reps that I do get. So we probably snap 30 balls a day, 40.
Depends on the day, yeah.
30 to 50.
Yeah.
That range-ish. Just go all out on those and like don't overthink it. Just wing it. Like, or don't wing it, but just like trust you as an athlete, trust the practice that you've put into this point.
Yeah. So. One of the things that was really vital in my, I guess, maturation process, right? Like as a snapper, was trusting my abilities. Yeah. Right? Like understanding that, I've snapped a ball hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times at this point. Trust your muscle memory. Yeah. Turn your brain off and let your body do the work, and everything's going to be just fine. Like shut out the noise or block out the noise, and just snap. Yeah. Like just snap. Like my mom texts me that before every game.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Shut up and snap.
Wow.
Like okay.
Those are like wise words,
right? Like hey, just snap. Like okay, I will. It's like all right. As simple as that. Like just snap. Don't think about anything else. Just snap the football. You've done it a million times. You'll be just fine.
Tress said something that I've since repeated to myself and to others, but don't take the athlete out of it, which I think is such a applicable saying.
Absolutely.
Support for today's episode comes from Skillshare, which is an online learning community for creators. With more than 25,000 classes in design, business, and more, you'll discover countless ways to fuel your curiosity, creativity, and career. Take classes in social media marketing, mobile photography, creative writing, or even illustration. Whether you're looking to discover a new passion, start a side hustle, or gain new professional skills, Skillshare is there to keep you learning and thriving. Join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for my listeners. Get 2 months of Skillshare for free. That's right, Skillshare is offering redirected listeners 2 months of unlimited access to over 25,000 classes for free. To sign up, go to Skillshare.com/East. Again, go to Skillshare.com/East to start your 2 months now. That's Skillshare.com/East. You mentioned that 70% or around
that. Yeah, it's like 65, 70, something like that.
Of players are on a minimum contract. So if we could discuss the factors that go into how a player makes the roster or doesn't, I think that'd be interesting. So you mentioned money is obviously a big one.
Salary cap.
Performance. Mm-hmm. How much do you think like off the field?
That's right where I was going. So there's a scale, right? It depends on the player and the whatever they did, right? But let's just say we're talking about character in general and like somebody's if somebody's I guess like high maintenance, right? Like as a player. So like what coaches deal with or are willing to put up with is on a scale, right? If your performance is up here, what a coach is willing to put up with is also up here. Yeah. But as soon as this starts to drop, so does this. Yeah. So as long as your performance stays up here, talking about like guys that are like Antonio Brown, who's sometimes is kind of
high maintenance,
right? That's at least the way it looks from the outside looking in, right? He's never been my teammate, I don't know, but that's the way he's painted, right? Yeah. Or a guy like Marquette King, like the punter who was in Oakland and Denver, right? he's dancing on the field and, getting 15-yard penalties, right? Well, as long as you're bombing the ball in the top 5 punting average and net every year, like, they'll put up with all that stuff because your performance is up here, so they'll put up with this. But as soon as your performance starts to drop, everything else does. So that, like, you're talking about off-the-field stuff, it's kind of similar. Like, as long as your performance is where it's supposed to be, the teams put up with quite a bit. But as soon as that performance starts to drop, man,
yeah.
So it's tough.
Do you think that it goes the opposite way too, though, of like, hey, your performance might be here, but your off-the-field stuff is here, so maybe we'll give you a little more credit in the performance area? Performance is a
off-the-field
qualifier.
stuff as in the good things you do?
Well, so I do want to talk about Loads of Love, which
we can do that, yeah.
We'll revisit that if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I think that's an
you
amazing
want to do a second
thing
pod?
that you do. No, I'm talking about like in like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
If you're good
yeah, we can do that.
If you're good with that. But like, does it help you make the squad as a charitable, like you're this pillar in the community kind of guy,
It doesn't hurt. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the biggest factor is performance. So if I go out there.
And then money.
Correct.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting.
Right. And that's one of the things that I try and teach. I try and kind of get across to younger guys, especially at positions that can be graded, like 1 to 32. Like a lot of guys I want to be in the top 3 highest paid kickers, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like that sounds awesome. You go sign a 5-year deal for $25 million or whatever. That's great. But now you're the highest paid kicker. So you better perform like it. If you have a year where you perform as the 3rd best kicker, now you're overpaid, right? Or you're the number 2 and you perform as 3 or 4 or 5. Like you still had the 5th best season in the NFL, but you're overpaid, right? So like,
wow, that's interesting.
So where's that middle ground where, like, hey, I'm totally fine being like 8, 9, 10, 11, and I might perform as 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
But I also might have a year where I finish 12, 13. Who knows? There's a ton of factors that come into play, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I think a lot of guys price themselves out of this league too.
So you kind of just mentioned that twice. There's a difference in our position. You don't want to bring too much attention to yourself contractually, or like you mentioned, Marquette, who is a friend of mine. I love Marquette
too.
He'll be on the show soon.
Dressed like a Power Ranger.
But like the fans love that from Marquette.
Yeah, everybody did, right.
The coaches, though.
Well, I don't think the former coaching staff minded, but John Gruden was not a fan of that stuff.
Right.
And he was making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, there was a give and take with all those
Yeah.
things, and they decided to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And that was their decision, which didn't pay out for them.
The decision makers, it varies a little bit from team to team, from my understanding. But like coaches and then scout, like
everybody has a voice. So you've got an entire scouting department that consists of multiple departments under that. But you've got college scouting, pro scouting. You've got, like all. So you have regional scouts that never come to the facility. They just stay in the southeast or the northwest or whatever, right? And they scout college guys in that area. So you've got a college scouting department that has little branches in it, and then you've got a pro scouting department that's got all sorts of different branches in it too. So you've got guys whose sole jobs are to look at back end of roster guys on other teams. Like, hey, if this guy gets cut, like we should pick him up because he's better, stuff like that. But so every scout has a voice, or the scouting department has a voice.
Yeah.
Then the coaching staff has a voice. Each voice holds a different amount of weight. Especially in the departments, but Jay's Coach Gruden's voice holds a lot more than some other guys. But at the end of the day, then you've got on our team Doug Williams and Bruce Allen, right, and Eric Schaefer and some other higher ups that also have a voice. And so I think they collab. I don't know who has final say, but I think. Right? Like, I think they collab and they try and come to an agreement, majority this, majority that sort of thing, and they make decisions that way. Yeah. But it is a very interesting dynamic because we don't necessarily have like a somebody whose title is GM here, like a lot of teams do. So there's not like a.
And other teams, the GM is the person that says this guy's on, this guy's off.
Well, generally that's how it would be, or at least when it comes to drafting players. Like I think the GM has the biggest voice in putting together the roster.
Yeah.
But when it comes to getting to the final 53, I think the coaches have a lot more say in that, like especially because of scheme and other like that sort of thing. And individual position coaches have a say because they spend so much time with their guys. They know who can and can't do what, and who pays attention in meetings, and who all that sort of thing. So there's so much more that goes into it than I ever could ever understood, and still than I ever could know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At this point, that's all way above my pay grade.
Well, yeah, there was my rookie year. I was like super concerned about like who do I need to talk to, or who should I impress, or like who do I need to be friends
Who are you,
with?
brown nosing? You mean?
Yeah.
This guy.
I'll say I'm better at that than you are, but no, I'm kidding. But then at the end of the day, you realize like, nope, performance is
absolutely
like that's all I need to worry about. That's all that really matters for me. The way that the player is informed when these people make a decision is known as a Grim Reaper.
Oh, it's terrible.
Within the locker room. But like it could be at any time, literally at lunch, after practice, right after you wake up, you could get a call, or you'll see somebody walk up to you, usually with like a sad face on, and they'll be like, hey, can we talk real quick? And then literally it's like 2 hours later you're on a flight. So
you want to hear how I got cut in Carolina?
Yeah, tell me. I'm curious.
We were in between. We had 2 padded practices that day. Finished the first one, had lunch. We had meetings. Went to meetings. And I was like, you know what? We've got like 3 hours till our next practice. You know what I really need? It was so hot down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And I was like, I need some soft serve. They had a soft serve machine in the cafeteria at this little rinky-dink college that we were staying at. I'm going to go get myself a nice vanilla ice cream. And I grab the door handle to go in the door, and I just hear, hey, Nick.
Oh, no.
And I turn, I'm like,
no.
Yeah. They're like, hey, coach wants to see you. I'm like,
stop.
Sure. Like, what are they talking about? I'm like, he's like, bring your playbook. And I was like,
oh, no.
I was like, for what? Right? Like, I was so dumb.
No.
I was like, I'm just going to get an ice cream cone real quick. He's like, no, you're going to come now. And I was like, oh, got it.
Oh, my God.
I haven't had soft serve since. Not
Really?
just kidding.
I was about to say, geez, man. Way to carry that scar.
Totally
with you.
scorned. No, I'm just kidding.
Man, I remember the Chiefs called me, and I legit tried to screen their call, not pick up. That doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
And then I need to talk to you about this because you know if this is legal or not. I legit got cut via Twitter. I have still to this day not spoken to the people in this organization. I found out online.
I mean, it's not illegal, but
Well, how does it?
They
I don't
should
know.
have told you. You know what I mean? I think
I saw my name in a mention. And I was like,
it's
oh,
a real.
gosh.
I'm not allowed to cuss.
No, I'm
apparently.
kidding, dude.
But it's a real
man.
messed up thing to do
Yeah.
to a player. I'm a big fan of
It's professional. Everybody says
being
it.
professional. Like, hey, at the end of the day, we all understand what we're signing up for. We all understand that this job can be taken away or given at any point. So, if you're gonna cut me, call me in your office. Let's have a conversation and cut me. Don't, please. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
We're all adults here. Let's have an adult conversation and then let me be on my merry way. But
yeah.
because I'm not trying to burn any bridges, and I don't want, coaches all talk, right? So if I'm trying to get a job somewhere else, I want to leave these coaches with a good impression of me on my way out, that sort of thing. And so every time I've been cut, I went to the head coach's office and said, thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I learned so much from you, that sort of thing. And, but yeah, you're not the first person I've talked to who's been cut, who's found out that they were released on Twitter. I do think it's kind of messed up.
Yeah. It's because of this, I don't know what the word is, the spontaneity that that the decision makers can make the decision that makes Shawn and I's fall every year impossible to plan, because I'm doing a workout potentially every other week,
right?
Or am I going to be in DC or whatever?
Right.
So there's that whole lifestyle side of it that is probably a whole nother podcast. I wanna transition now. I've never told you this, and I probably will never again say this outside of this podcast.
So you're just gonna tell everybody though?
you're a phenomenal snapper. Like,
Oh, thanks, man.
I was talking to Tress. I was like, dog, Nick's freaking good, man. He's good. Like, I guess. Oh, well, let's do that real quick. Your strong suits versus mine.
Sure.
Your accuracy.
My ability to snap the football is my strongest suit.
Probably unparalleled.
My strongest attribute, correct.
And when we say that, I'm talking accuracy,
Velocity.
speed, and then just like the consistency. It's like fantastic. The spiral, the comfort for the punter, I think plays into that.
Where I lack, and I have my entire career, is quickness with my feet. Because I've played for a long time, I can recognize who I have to block pretty quickly, so I'm able to get in position. But a lot of times I'm beat and have to fight with a guy more than I should have to. And then I don't run a 4-4. So what I've learned to do is read returns and just happen to end up, like as you start running downfield, you can diagnose where guys are going, and I try and just end up where the returner is going to be. But I'm not great in coverage by any means, right?
Although, you get the job done though.
Yeah,
I would say.
Your feet are absolutely better than mine.
And then my snapping like gets me. I'm qualified. I'm not like the best. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm qualified. I'm not. I'll admit I'm not the number one guy out there. Like, wow, that guy's a legit, beautiful long snapper. You know what I'm saying? And then like athleticism has tended to be something that I've heard positive feedback on. I used to take a lot of pride in my strength, but you've humbled me in that. So I've gotten absolutely crushed in the weight room.
Sorry.
So you are.
It's because I'm old now. It's called old man strength.
You're freaking strong, dude. So you're a phenomenal snapper. We talked about like really from a relationship standpoint. I feel like you treat people really well, but you also have recently started Loads of Love, or maybe not so recently. I would love for you to talk to us about that organization.
Sure. So if you've never heard of it, my wife, Flora, and I, through the Redskins Charitable Foundation, helped start a program called Loads of Love. And what we do is we build laundry centers in schools, so it could be elementary, middle, high schools, and nonprofits. The goal is to get kids to go to school, because we found out that, unfortunately, a lot of kids aren't going to school because they don't have clean clothes. All right, so basically the gist of it is my wife and I were sitting on the couch one night, and she came across this article on social media. Whirlpool, the washer and dryer company, had done a study. They put 3 washers and dryers in elementary schools in California, down in L.A., and then in somewhere in Missouri. And they went to these schools and asked for a list of their most at-risk kids. So every homeless kid, any kid on free and reduced lunch, basically all the kids with the most unexcused absences. And they put them in this program where every single day of the school year, the kids could bring a bag of dirty clothes and drop it off in the morning. And there were no restrictions on what the kids could bring. So if it's a uniform school, it was uniforms or other clothes that they wouldn't wear to school. And then if mom and dad needed a work shirt done, if little brother or sister, older brother or sister needed something washed, I throw it in the bag. And at some point during the day, a teacher on their off period, a front office member, a PTA member volunteers to come in, and if there's a bunch of bags sitting there, you throw them in the washer. Next person that comes in throws them in the dryer. Next person that comes in, if you got time to fold 3 bags full of clothes, you fold 3 bags full of clothes. And they're in bags, so none of the kids' clothes get mixed up. And then at the end of the day, these kids get to pick up their freshly washed and folded clothes. At the end of the school year, they ran the numbers and saw a 98% increase in attendance, an 89% increase in grades. Participation was through the roof. Confidence was through the roof. These kids are, participating in after-school activities more. They felt a part of a community. They felt taken care of. And I was absolutely blown away that the solution to this giant problem that we have could be as simple as a washer and a dryer, right? So,
wow.
One of the things that really, it's funny when you're younger, like when I was younger, I would try to. I've always done a lot of stuff with the charitable organization. They always have stuff on the board to do, and you go read to kids or you go wherever, right? And it was always fun, but I was never like truly passionate about anything. But I was always looking for something to be like, man, this is where I want to spend my time. And I had no idea that it would be washers and dryers, right? So what we did is we went to the Charitable Foundation here and just said, hey, like, I don't know what it would cost, but please read this article and tell me that this isn't something that we should do here, right? Like, we're doing a disservice to the kids in our community by not offering a program like this. So Floor and I fronted the money for our pilot program. We piloted in 3 elementary schools in PG County, which is where our stadium is, and 2 Sasha Bruce, there's shelters in D.C. that focus on families with young kids. That was in 2017, and in 2018, we had a grant. We opened up a grant and had schools apply to us, and we picked 42 schools. We opened 42 new Loads of Love locations last year. So right now we're at 47, and our goal for this year, we actually just finished our second round of grants. We're going through applications right now to pick hopefully 103 new locations for this year. We want to get to 150 by the end of December. Yeah.
Bro, that's freaking sweet, man.
So we're opening up 7 new ones tomorrow, actually, down here in Richmond.
Whoa.
Yeah. 10 to 12 if you want to come.
Wow.
It's been a lot of fun. I've learned a ton. It's crazy. I never thought that I would be passionate about washers and dryers, but one of the things that's kind of really drawn me and my wife to it is just this isn't a region-specific issue, right? So, we're in Richmond right now. We're in Ashburn, Virginia. My wife is from the Central Valley of California. I'm from Phoenix. But it doesn't matter where you go. The issue is still the same, like getting kids to go to school, right? The reason for the issue of kids not going to school might be different place to place, but the issue itself is the same. So, like, in D.C. or in some places of Baltimore, it might be government housing. And in the Central Valley of California, there's a ton of migrant farm workers who are moving from labor camp to labor camp, right? So, like, who don't have washers and dryers available, or it doesn't matter where it is. Like in Loudoun County, Virginia, where we are, it's the highest one of the highest. I believe their district has the most homeless kids of any district in the country, which is wild. It's the third highest housing income, or like third highest median housing income, or whatever, in the entire country.
Jeez,
it's crazy. The numbers are disgusting, but it doesn't matter where you are. The solution to the problem is the same. So, like, all you need is a wash and dryer. And so it's been really eye-opening and a lot of fun, and I've learned it's just so much. I thought it was easy as a washer and dryer. It's a whole lot harder than that. I totally forgot about, like, plumbing and HVAC and electric and, like, just installing this giant fire hazard in an elementary school. Talking about the dryer, right? Like, so there was a lot that went into it that the team's legal department had to help out with, but we've had a ton of fun with it. We've met so many just amazing kids throughout the process, and I'm so excited to see I'm so excited to hopefully hit our goals for this year, and that would put us in just over 2 years in 150 locations throughout the DMV. And so there are over 1,000 Title I schools just in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia who are eligible for this program. Can I pub this real quick?
Hit it.
Redskins.com/community. I would love you all to go check it out and just read about it. The reason that my wife and I didn't start our own foundation and do this on our own is because I wanted to do stuff like this, where you might live in Oregon and you're watching this podcast and say, holy crap, like, this sounds like something that my niece and nephew's school could use. Like, I wonder if that's something we could do here. Absolutely. Like, contact us. I'm at Nick Sundberg on Twitter. Like, tweet me. We will absolutely send you the blueprint to be able to do this at a school in your area. We didn't want to pigeonhole this as like Nick and Floor Sundberg's Loads of Love, right? Like, if you want to help kids in your area, please, I beg you to help kids in your area. But if you want to learn more about the program, again, it's redskins.com/community. If you want to help kids in our area, there's a donate tab there. It's crazy, but like $50 buys laundry detergent and all that stuff for a full year for one school. So like
Wow.
every single dollar counts, and especially with the Redskins Charitable Foundation, 100% of every donation goes straight to the programs. And they have a bunch of other really awesome programs too. You can read up on those, but I'm super passionate about Loads of Love. I appreciate you giving me the platform right here to
Thanks
talk about it.
for talking, and thank you for walking the talk. You actually, what was it, in June that you did a $25,000 match?
Yeah.
For hats off to you, man.
Thanks,
seriously. What are your goals
today?
in life?
I'm just kidding.
In life.
Right now, Flora and I are working on trying to have kids.
Whoa, I did not know that.
Yeah. I don't know. I try not to think too far ahead. I've always been kind of a one day at a time kind of guy, especially in this business where like you never know what can happen. Like we talked about earlier, like I get asked all the time, like how long do you want to play this game? Like honestly, I'm just trying to make it to Cleveland, right? So like, and that's kind of been my thought process for a long time, just kind of week to week, day to day, week to week, that sort of thing. I don't have a ton of like super long term goals. I do want to help grow Loads of Love to like a nationwide program. That is absolutely up there for me. But in terms of like playing career, that sort of stuff, I'm not too sure.
Okay, that's fair. You think you'll wear sleeves someday, or
no?
I'm kidding.
only
the tank top guy.
Only in New York when it was -8 with wind chill, and that was terrible.
What advice do you have for young football players who want to make it to the NFL?
Practice. And I mean, that goes for any position really, but especially if you're a specialist. Like hone your craft, whatever it is. And that's not even, doesn't even have to pigeonhole that into football players, right? Like if you play tennis, like hone your craft. You golf, hone your craft. Be your best self. We're kind of, there's some things that are coming full circle here, but take every day one day at a time and be the best you can be every day, and that's all you can do, right? Like when I was younger, I was very lucky that I had a coach that took snapping very seriously, and he was very, very hard on me, and all of us that he coaches. We weren't allowed to miss a day. If we did, you weren't welcome back, right? So like I had to skip all my vacations with my parents, when I was in high school. Once he became my coach, or friends are going to, I was from Phoenix, friends are driving down to Mexico, leaving Thursday night, that sort of thing. We're going to take a long 3-day weekend. Like, well, I got to snap on Friday night. I can't go, or else I can't go, or else I'm not welcome back, right? Yeah. So like, take pride in what you do, and do it with, everything you've got. Is like, I think something that was, I don't want to say beaten into me, but drilled pretty hard into me when I was young. And that's what I would pass on if I could.
That's really good advice. I think you touched on it, but one thing I've been trying to work on is like, I think it's super important to have big, ambitious goals, but don't lose the enjoyment of what you're achieving now on a day-to-day basis in that goal. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't downplay, like, hey, I practiced in an NFL practice today, or I made it through my high school practice today. Like whatever that small thing is, like just there's something good in that.
Absolutely, and what I'd add to that is have fun.
Yeah,
that's my one of the biggest things that I tell myself on a daily basis is to have fun, because if you're not having fun, it's not worth doing, right?
Yeah.
So I want to enjoy what I do. That's why I rag on you and Tress and Hop so much, because I want you guys to laugh. I want you, on days like
giving me a hard time. I'm sick of it.
This guy's just so big into CrossFit. He's easy to make fun of, right?
I get made fun of a lot.
No, days like today, it's super hot outside. There's no wind. It's, it's easy to kind of fall into that trap of like, oh, poor me, this sucks. But like when you're having fun, all of that stuff, all those negatives kind of fade away, and they kind of get pushed to the back burner. So I like when it's time to be serious, but have fun. Absolutely have fun doing what you're doing, because if not, what's the point?
Wise words. We should give the Reddit fam a quick what's up, because I saw you did a Reddit AMA.
I did do a Reddit AMA a couple years ago.
As did I. and I think it's sparked in the Reddit community like this passion for long snappers. So I think you and I together collectively can take credit for that. But
Absolutely.
what's up, Reddit fan? Thanks for taking the time to do this, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man.
I hope you guys learned something. And if you haven't yet, make sure that you give Nick a follow on Twitter. That's his only social media.
Yeah, I'm
Baffles my
sorry.
mind,
I don't have Instagram or Facebook or any of that stuff.
It's worth the follow. He has some crazy experiences with birds, but
They just like to land on my shoulder. It's weird. I don't know.